Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are calling and listening into around this glorious world. Hope everybody's having a nice day, and thank you very much for checking us out again and sticking with us and coming back to the Water Zone Show. We appreciate it. I'm Rob Starr, along with Miss Tara Malali.
We're starting off strong today, folks.
I started strong, yeah, a mouthful. I don't know, I think of something else when I say that anyway. And Miss Chris Austin, and she has this querying look at me right now.
So moving into the water news, the Bay Delta plan, which is, I feel like everything that everyone's talking about today, is that they finally released this Bay Delta plan. So Chris, tell us what's in it.
Oh, I know. Well, hey, they've only started updating this plan back in 2009, and I am not exaggerating there. So we finally get to this date. But I can't calculate it. It's a lot, though. Many, many years. I don't have a calculator. I'm lost. But yeah, it's a much ballyhooed plan. But what's unique about this plan is that it's the water users in the Sacramento Valley and in parts of the Bay Delta watershed have come together to offer the State Water Board something different than just mandated percentages of, water that they can take. So they're putting a lot of things on the table. The program that they're proposing, it has a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of habitat restoration projects to help with, build habitat and bring back salmon. They're going to recognize tribal tradition and culture as a beneficial use. There's going to work on protecting fish and wildlife. There's science program to measure results and to drive the science of this program. And it's an 8-year program. And at the end of 8 years, it can either be renewed or they can go back to a more traditional mode of regulation. The thing is with the Water Board's traditional mode of regulation, it's just a percentage of unimpaired flow, and which is what they think that the water would be flowing down the river if there were no dams or diversions. What's interesting is I attended a presentation a long time ago, many years ago, that said that the numbers that they use for this unimpaired flow are, just kind of old and have a lot of problems with it. But interestingly, nobody really goes back and looks at those. I actually had a reporter write up about, unimpaired flows and where do they get these numbers from. But I digress. And when I say the Water Board uses a percentage of unimpaired flows, that actually makes it sound easier than it is, because it sort of imposes all these other extra conditions, and you kind of go by calendar. So, at such date, you're going to do this for, to protect salmon, which it mainly is you can't divert or you're going to release from your reservoirs or whatever. And it goes all through the year with all sorts of requirements, but they're all calendar-based and they're all kind of fixed based on what somebody in Sacramento thinks needs to be in that river at that time. It doesn't really respond to things that are going on the ground. So what's interesting about this voluntary agreement or the Healthy Rivers and Landscape Program is that they're trying to take a more holistic approach and So they're offering to give up some water. They're offering to do this habitat restoration with funding from state and federal sources, of course. And they'll do this science program and try to make things better. And this is, they have broad support. Pretty much all the water districts and agencies in Northern California that are involved in this process that divert water seem to be on board with this process. I don't know of many detractors. I can't really think of any offhand. There probably are, but in the water world, water agency world, this program has broad support. In the environmental part of the world, it's a much different story. Yeah, they think that the agencies aren't offering enough water, that the state water board's regulations would be, their approach would be more protective, and there is broad opposition from the environmental and tribal communities to this plan. They weren't involved in the crafting of this plan. They started out, I think, trying to do the Big Ten approach. We'll bring in the water agencies and the environmentalists, and those negotiations fell apart years ago, and so they pretty much continued on without them. So one of the arguments that they make is that you developed these things in isolation and you didn't talk to us. But they don't like them nonetheless. Not enough water. The habitat is great. Why don't you just do that anyways without all these other things? So we'll see. And they are correct in that the amount of water that's in this Healthy Rivers and Landscapes program is less than what the State Water Board would have required under their regulatory regime. So they are correct in that, and they say it's too little, and it's not, it's going to not help things. It's going to make things worse. That's it in a nutshell.
So they haven't learned since years ago that they should put people together instead of doing it on their own, and because it's going to keep dragging out.
Well,
it's already got years behind it.
Yeah, but I also think there's something to be said where if you're trying to get agreement on something, that I think that the water agencies wanted to group together and see what they were going to put on the table without having the people that are against that in the room, because I don't think they were able to get anywhere because of the opposition in the room. Now, I mean, I think, yeah, you do need to bring things to get people together, and you hope to find a collaborative solution, but sometimes that's just not possible. I mean, I kind of thinking about the people involved. And I think they could have done a better job after they kind of came up with what they put on the table, reaching out to those folks, but I'm not sure how receptive they were at that point, because they're pretty mad. The people, the Delta advocates, because not only do we have the Bay Delta plan, but now you have the Delta Tunnel, and they don't, we all know they really don't like that either. So, it's it's sort of shaping up to be a really big fall here, because we're going to have a decision here soon on Sites Reservoir, which also comes from the State Water Board. And are they going to modify the water right that they've given for Sites Reservoir? And the people that are building it say that the water right is too small and makes their project unfeasible. So we got that we're looking forward to. And then we're going to have this there, the State Water Board would adopt this theoretically in October, and they want to adopt this before Newsom leaves office, because a new administration comes in, who knows what's going to happen at that point. And the Delta Conveyance Project, the tunnel, I don't know what's happening there. There were some legislative things that as I understood, really needed to occur for that project to go forward, and that legislation did not make it through the legislature this year. So I think that means, obviously, that there's not going to be any deal on the Delta Conveyance Tunnel before Newsom leaves office. I think that's pretty much, I don't see how that could happen. And we'll see if they get this Bay Delta plan done and what happens, the next people coming in. Who knows?
I want to nominate you for the board.
I don't want to be on the board.
Everybody who should be on the board probably doesn't want to be on the board.
Yeah, well, there are people. I used to, when I would go to meetings and so, I remember talking to one of the board members who's no longer on the board, and I was saying, "Wow, I'm sure glad I don't have your job." And then, because you have to make all these tough decisions, and I realized, that's probably not a nice thing to say.
But it's so true.
But people, we need people to decide these things, and
yeah.
I do think there are people out in the world that see that they can make a positive difference in some way to be on these boards. Like Doreen Diadamo.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah, and she represents the agricultural interests that, the
and
State Water Board.
Very, very involved. And so, it's not to say that the people who are on the State Water Regional Control Board are bad actors by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that it's oftentimes you people who would be amazing on the thing, but they're never going to want to be on it. And you're like, oh, if only these people had access to this brain, it would be magic. But you're always going to get a little bit of that compromise of who's willing to take it versus who we wish would actually do the work. And I mean, it's got to be tough to have to make some of these decisions that are really controversial. It'd be really tough, and thank God there are people willing to do it. Because it's not me.
Well, it's like the AI discussion of people who don't want these new data centers to be built, and they're complaining how much water it's going to use, how much electric it's going to use. And I was listening to a radio station today. And it was interesting. They were talking about it was in Texas, and the caller says they're building all these things and they don't want them there because it's going to they're going to take water from them and everything else. And so the moderator said, "Well, how many golf courses are there in your county?" And I think it was something where like 45 or something like that. He says, "Do you know how much the typical golf course uses in water a day?" Because they're saying the data centers are going to use 1 billion, a day, and so why don't they talk about doing something about the golf courses?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The golf courses have a community benefit in that you can go play golf at the golf courses. Can't play golf at a data center. Can't and go.
But you can process so much data that doesn't keep us behind other countries who are willing to do that at a data center.
And it really depends on how the project is brought about. And there was an article somewhere I posted sometime this week. So much data center news, but they talked about some places like in Washington where they built a data center and they've been able to improve the schools and lower taxes and so it really all depends on how you go about it, and I think also people need to be reasonable about it, and I don't think that that's quite existing yet. I think people just hear data centers and they're like, no data centers, but I like to say the devil is in the details. I mean, we need these things, and then they're going to get built, but they can be built in a manner such that the community is not impacted negatively, and maybe even have some positive outcomes. Jobs too. The article said that because they say data centers don't need jobs, or they don't give a lot of jobs. They're like, well, they need electricians and engineers and people that keep things going, and that actually they do provide some jobs to the.
Well, out here in Arizona, one of the problems they have, they're building lots of them. Some of them are located, I'll call it, within a home to residential community, where some people bought homes for the last 5-10 years, and they had their backyard and their block wall fence, but there was a field behind that. And now they're building those things right behind it. It was like people building a shopping center.
You're never guaranteed a view.
Yeah. Well, you get a view of a data center and
shopping
center.
That is the developer's drum forever. You are never, when you purchase your home, unless you purchase the land behind it, it is not your land.
Right.
No, and if you're ever, I learned this lesson the hard way. If you're ever buying a property, you should look at what land is undeveloped around you, and you better find out what's planned for there. Because some of the things that I had to deal with at my house in Canyon Country were projects that were approved in 1984, and I could have easily known what was planned for that property if I had gone looking for it. And we didn't. So, Yeah.
And the other thing that I think is really interesting about data centers is there's ones that I feel like are horrifically built, where they're open systems, and then there's the closed systems one, where they don't use that much water, and they use electricity, sure, but they don't do it in the same levels and ways that they do when they're just sort of not regulated. Like, it's that thing where, like, city council needs to look and actually, like, hold these companies accountable to benefit their communities and to not detract from their communities. Just like what Chris is saying about how the devil's in the details. There's some that are like, they're only using a very minimal amount of water. I actually did a ton of research on this because we keep talking about them, and then I was like, I have no idea how much water these things use. So I did a whole rabbit hole study about like how much water data centers use, and it's like so variable because it depends on the size, the scale, but then it comes down to the system and whether or not they wanted to invest initially on a closed loop system. And if you force them to invest on a closed loop system, they don't have a choice, and they have to pay for that. And then they're not banking on it will save them money over time, because lots of times the people who build it aren't the people who then use it. Right? They build it and sell that to somebody else. So they're trying to build this thing for the least amount of money possible, and then have somebody else and then have somebody else pick up the bill for years and years and years. This is this open water source, and as water becomes more and more expensive, I mean, I wouldn't want to buy an open loop system, that's for sure.
No. So, Chris, here the Oroville Dam's license is looming over water debates.
Oh, that's another thing that's been going on for a very, very long time, is the relicensing of Oroville Dam. That actually may compete with the water board for length of time. It's incredible. I mean, the dam's license expired a long time ago, and still, I don't know why it takes so long. This is on a federal development, too. But, yeah, Oroville was promised a lot of things when they came in and built that dam. They promised campgrounds and golf courses and things that were going to draw people out to go recreate there, and that was going to bring in lots and lots of money. That's kind of what they were promised. Not exactly what has occurred, and the county estimates that the economic burden to Butte County, hey, that's where I live, includes, $20 million annually in expenses and lost property taxes from 41,000 acres. So, it's kind of it's an interesting story. I wish I had a reporter I could go in and find out why does it take so long. But when they go and do a relicensing, then the dam that gives an opportunity for people in the community and other people who have an interest in that dam. So that would be environmentalists and stuff. Gives them a chance to give input into the process, and then new terms and conditions are then placed on the project. And it's a 50-year license that they're going for. So that's kind of why every 50 years you kind of can look at this and maybe change things around. Yeah, it's a long time. We'll see. I don't know why it takes so long. But
do you
something
think, Chris,
you never hear about.
Do you think that the very early water rights given or obtained in California, that the government will try to change some of those?
You know, I think we have a problem with 19th century constructs in a 21st century world. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a state thing or a federal thing, but I mean, you look at the Colorado River. The Imperial Irrigation District is the one that gets the lion's share of the water on the Colorado River, more than any state, several times more than what Metropolitan Water District gets for Southern California. When they're talking about California's use of the Colorado River, they're really talking about the Imperial Valley, although they rarely ever do they say that. And all of that 3.1 million acre feet of water rights into the Imperial Valley, more than any other state on the Colorado River, those were acquired in 1890, 1900, when there was lots and lots of water around. Technically, if you go by the rules of water rights, if the Colorado River were to reduce to, and it only flowed at 3 million acre feet, every state and every irrigation district along the river would have to let that water flow by so it could all go down into the Imperial Valley. Now, the Colorado River isn't going to get that low, at least not quite yet. But that's kind of an issue. I mean, I don't know how you're going to solve it. And the farmers in the Imperial Valley are very reluctant to give up any of their water. As things go on and it gets tighter, they have come to the table. They have given up a couple 100,000 acre feet. But when you have rights for 3 million acre feet and you're the largest user on the river, I think people are looking for more than, a couple 100,000 acre feet. But when we're going to see how that's going to play out. I mean, it's hard to change those kinds of constructs, and people who have water rights will tell you, well, I built my property, I built my life, my economic life around having this water right. Now you want to just take it away, and they got a point there. That's kind of not how we do things in this country. But I see like the situation on the Colorado River is going to come butt up heads against that, and we'll have to see how we maneuver out of that.
It's going to be tough. Well, we're coming up on our commercial break, and we'll have to go to that. But Chris, thank you very much for giving us the update of what's happening. And I know the news seems to drag, not by what you do, but the actions of where it's coming from. As you said, it takes years, and it's just like, building a desal plant that takes 17 years to get aboard. By the time you do that, you're behind in time, and you needed more, but it's crazy. But anyway, for our listeners, I always tell you to go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber, get all the information about water that's happening in your state, in California, and it's awesome. You get it early in the morning, and gives you the fresh perspective, and it's non-biased. Got to admit that, and it's well written and well done, and we really enjoy it. And so again, you go to mavensnotebook.com. You can also become a sponsor of that if you like. donate a little bit. It is a state-free business, so it's tax deductible as well. So, Chris, thank you very much. You have a wonderful weekend. I hope it cools down where you are, and maybe get a little.
Enjoy your monsoon.
Yeah, I enjoyed my monsoons for the last week, so that's it. So, anyway, you have a good one, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to be back with a featured guest that I'm very excited to have, and that's all I'm going to say at the moment until he gets on the air. So stick around. Right after our break, we'll be right back.
KCAA. Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
Every minute counts when you're on the job. So why spend time searching for the tools you use every day? With the SiteOne mobile app, you can customize your home screen for faster, easier access to what matters most. When you're logged in, just tap Personalize on your home screen. From there, choose up to 9 of your most used tools like lists, quotes, and calculators from an extensive list of options. Toggle off what you don't need and toggle on only the ones you use the most. Put your essential tools front and center. Reduce clicks, save time, stay focused on the work that matters. And if your needs change, no problem. You can update your selections anytime. Make the SiteOne app personal to you. Get what you need faster with SiteOne Mobile.
Southern California's Inland Talk Express is KCAA.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Thanks for sticking around. We have a special guest. It's a gentleman I've known for quite a few years, but he is an icon in the irrigation industry. And I look up to him. I really respect him. He's a great, smart, creative designer. He's worked for a couple major irrigation companies in his career. He has his own company today. It's called Grizzle Design and Products. And his name is Glenn Grizzle. And he's just a wonderful person that I've ever met in my life. And he's a good man to deal with. So, Glenn, welcome to the Water Zone Show.
Thank you, Robert. That's quite an introduction. But anyway, I have been in the business for 65 years. And,
wow.
Anyway, I mean, you irrigation.
I thought you were 42.
Yeah. Yeah. We all wish we were.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
I'm happily 46.
Thank you very much. There's the irrigation is so many people have left the irrigation industry, retired or died or whatever, in my time. But the real people that are concerned about the irrigation industry don't seem to be around anymore. And it's all about making money. The big companies, that's what it's all about. Who's going to be the biggest, and not who's going to really serve the industry. And so. Anyway, that's
looking back over your
no,
but looking back over your career, how have you seen the irrigation industry change in terms of scale, scope, importance, especially in ag and landscaping?
well, the irrigation landscaping has quadrupled. Really, it used to be a luxury. Now it's a necessity. And people don't necessarily like irrigation; they like green grass, and so consequently, those two don't save water, or our focus doesn't get on saving water. But the irrigation industry has really, really grown in the three major companies, as you know them well, the
right.
Hunters and the Toros and Rangers, but they're not doing their job, in my opinion. And I've told them this year for years and years. It's their responsibility to tell the customer how to use their product. And there are not too many homeowners that has any clue of how much water they're using, or how to save water, or a gardener can't even get in and turn the sprinklers on because their controllers are in the garage. When they come, they can't. But it has grown, and it'll continue to grow a little bit. I don't think it'll grow as fast as it has been. Like, we've seen it happen in golf. Golf went really crazy in '90. We were building a golf course every day, or supplying irrigation for it. And now you're lucky to build brand new golf courses, 25 or 30 a year. In the '90s, early '90s, there was a one a day, 450 golf courses one year that was actually built and put in the system. So every one of them takes water.
Yeah.
So
Karen?
kind of, I was going to step into this golf course conversation because I used to live in the Coachella Valley, which was like land of golf. I used to live in PGA West. So
oh, wow.
Understand.
Yeah.
So did you play Stadium? Because that's where I used to live. Anyways, there's always been this, especially there, golf courses are watered with recycled water, except for sometimes they aren't, and that's okay too. Or they're always watered by some special water that's not part of the drinking water group, and that's not usually true. And I had done this outreach at the time for a wave park, and the wave park actually maintained the water because it created a reservoir, whereas a golf course, which is what it had been, a lot of people would have used the water, right? Because if you can't, the water's seeping in and you can't see it, it's being used, and then it evaporates. If you hold on to it and you can see it, it feels like more water, but it's actually using less water, which I know was people could not, their brain could not wrap their arm around it. So I'm just wondering how we, without damaging the golf community, inform people that golf courses use so much water, but also they don't all have to, and it's very golf course specific. And so you can't just unilaterally, it's like ag. You can't unilaterally hate ag for using water because some ag doesn't waste water and some ag does. Same with golf courses.
Yeah. Well, they've got 118 golf courses in Palm Springs, and each one of them use approximately 1 million gallons of water a day.
Yep.
But Palm Springs is just a big bowl there. So all the water that they use goes down in the bowl, and they recycle it. They're fortunate to have that supply. They also get water from the recycle, and a lot of the golf courses that I'm associated with, they actually blend their recycled water to potable water if they don't have enough recycled water. And that's another issue in some of the golf courses. They would love to fill their ponds up with recycled water and use it, but they don't always have that available for some odd reason.
Yeah, and it feels to me like that's a water, water districts should be working with those large users to sort of figure out how to make that happen, whether it's their system or like if there could be some form of like reduced impact fee since it will benefit the water supply over time. I don't know how that would work, but I feel like there's something there. Like you could make it so that they still pay something for the cost of doing it, but not. Yeah, tell me more. I feel like you have something to say.
I agree with you 100%. That there's when they turn an irrigation system on, when they recycle, it goes all night long in a lot of cases. When they apply about a half an inch an hour of water, and most of those sprinklers are putting out about 30, 35 gallons a minute. And what they do, they try to put all the water on at one time. And there are not too many flat golf courses out here in this country. And water moves on the surface if you try to apply it too fast. My campaign back in the old days was trying to get the homeowner and anybody that's using water is to get it to go in the soil, not running off into the gullies and down the street. And the only way that you can primarily do that is just put it on a little bit at a time. You know, the old farmer in Oklahoma used to say that wasn't that a good rain, but I didn't know what he was talking about then. But today I do, because he was saying it was a good rain because it was a slow rain. And the way you do that with a golf course, or a homeowner, you fix that controller so it'll run. In fact, I built one in Toro long time ago. The stations were 9 minutes. That's all you could get. If you needed more, you recycle. And meaning that the system would go all the way through the total cycle, the whole golf course, and it would go back and put more on where you needed it, rather than trying to put it all on at the same time. You've been out on a golf course, I'm sure we all have, where there's puddles of water, there are creeks or water running back into the pond or whatever. It's just because the soil, down Palm Springs, they don't have too much problem with that because there's a sandy soil and it goes in pretty fast. But in a lot of part of the country, the water doesn't. Mother Nature normally doesn't absorb water much faster than a quarter of an inch an hour. But all sprinklers, particularly golf courses, they're around 0.4 to half a gallon an hour, and or an inch an hour. I'm sorry. And homeowners, they have no clue what they're doing. They're out there applying water at 2 gallons per sprinkler per minute, and that's putting a lot of at 2 inches an hour for water. So what they need to do is have controllers that run for homeowners. I think it'd be 5 minutes. The controller will run 5 minutes on any station you want. And at the end of that, if you say, well, that's not enough, but you don't want to water so much that you go beyond the roots. And the farmers does it better than anybody. I mean, they are experts at the level that they put water down into the soil because water is expensive, as you know. So the homeowner is really, really, really behind times. It's almost an archaic industry. They're not educated. Homeowners, gardeners, people that are in control, gardeners, homeowners, all he wants is green grass. And the gardener thinks more water will fix the problem. Well, it will, and then some areas it won't.
Well, that's with a lot of HOAs. They just want that curb appeal because they get beaten every day. That they want the place to look nice so people move in and do all of that.
Absolutely.
But when smart controllers were accepted and starting getting certified by the EPA back in 2012, California had a law on the books that by that date, anything you sold in irrigation had to be a smart controller. And now I understand that for new builds, but what I never got was the install the base of homes that were already built, from 40 years ago to when their controller went bad, they go to the store, they could buy a standard one not as they had a choice. I mean, some stores had the smart controllers, and they also had non-smart controllers. And people typically who were at home and built a home 30 years before said, "Hey, I'm not going to pay." I remember Toro had one that they sold for $650. That's a lot of money just to sprinkle water on the grass. But and they weren't the only companies that do that. The Rainbird Hunter and other places did the same thing. But they never made a regulation that if you're going to change or do anything and modify an older system, that you have to buy it and make it that way for everybody, instead of just people who buy the smart things. What technologies have you seen that were the most powerful that you've done in the past 20 years, and why? And because there's so many new technologies and things that came out of me, things that you showed me when I was working with you on stuff, it was just amazed me that. And I guess it amazed me because I thought you and the brothers, you know who I'm talking about, who retired and sold their business. You made great products, and you were very intuitive to what was happening. Instead of you didn't have, you had the big brains of a big company, but you knew how to get things done with a small amount of group who could do the job and get it done fast. And that was amazing to me. But what do you see has really helped the irrigation business since the start?
Well, I think people, the sprinklers will apply the water closer to what Mother Nature can absorb. But just running water out there, the CUs and the coefficient of uniformity, that is not known very well in the residential and commercial areas at all. The facing of the sprinklers and the application. But one of the things that came out here a while back was they had to have a regulator in all the risers. And I talked to the people in Sacramento at the IA show about that. And, they really missed the boat. It's the check valves that keep the water from draining it down the streets or sidewalks when the sprinkler is turned off. If you don't have a check valve, but now they got a regulator in there that does nothing for as saving water, in my opinion. Because most all sprinkler has to have 35 pounds of work. And they put a 40-pound regulator in the riser. So that the innovation, and I look at the sprinkler more than I do the controllers, because the controllers just never did. People didn't understand it. All of the ones that the big companies built, the homeowner couldn't operate them. It had a features all over it, and they couldn't understand how to operate. So they put it out there, and they set it one time, and that's it. It stays that way 24 hours a day, 7 days, all year long. And it doesn't matter if it's raining or whatever, the sprinkler still runs. So the innovation of sprinklers, it goes way back. To start with, at Ed Hunter, and when I went to work there in '62, plastic was the thing that got irrigation going. And we introduced plastic to irrigation. So the gear-driven sprinklers and the valve and head sprinklers and the valves, all of that came basically out of the Ed Hunter and myself, which was at the Toro company for the first 20 years. So, but everybody just sort of copied that in a form. They all make it. There's the PGP sprinkler that Hunter sells today is the number one sprinkler. Millions and millions of sprinklers they sell.
It's a great product.
It is, and they've captured the market. They put, as you know, probably better than I do. They've actually really hurt Toro. Actually, put them out of the business. And
like Rainbird, it's like Rainbird with cost. They had a rotor called the Falcon, and they used them in baseball fields. And other companies tried to do something, but they couldn't match the speed. They had to change the stator and stuff. I'm not mechanical, I'm an electronic guy, but from my one semester of mechanical engineering, it can be done. It can be done.
I did it.
Yeah, I know.
I have the patent on the variable speed stator, all of the sprinkler that I produced over the years when I was in the irrigation business or owned an irrigation company, we could go from 1 gallon to 20 gallons in a sprinkler, and the speed would stay the same.
Yeah.
And because it was a variable volume stator, and they didn't have to touch it. You know, you can go out there and change nozzles, or you could do that. And even in the irrigation or the golf business, they're borderlines. They don't have a real control of that. So consequently, if you're not running the same speed, you're not getting to actually CU that they publicize. If the sprinkler running too fast or too slow, it changes the area that it's water that it's trying to grow green grass in. So,
Toro?
It's about education, in my opinion, as far as the homeowner. It bothered me to see water running down the street.
Oh, yeah.
And I know the reason why, but you can't fix it. They don't care. I mean,
or when they turn or if they're using fertigation and they turn it up to 80 to 90 psi, and you start seeing mist, you know there's a problem.
Oh yeah, then it goes out in the wind. But
so I love that you mentioned education. Like that's gonna solve everyone because everybody listens to when they're told exactly how to behave. They do that so beautifully when you're like, please don't do that, and then they go literally the next day and go do that. I actually wonder if at some point we're going to get into more of an enforcement question, because I feel like likely that's the only way to make people change. I mean, people don't like to follow the rules generally unless they see something that benefits them. I'd love to be like, oh, there's all these altruistic people. I mean, yeah, there are people like my mom who I feel like is maybe an angel, and she tries to follow every single rule every single time. And yeah, there's like maybe 12 of them in the world. I don't know. Like I have not encountered many people outside of her that if told, hey, can you please not wash your sidewalk, they're still going to wash their sidewalk because that's what they've been doing for 50 years. They're not like, today I'm going to use a broom, which is much harder.
Yeah.
So,
well, Tara, you know, when I was growing up, when I was little, 5, 6 years old,
mm-hmm.
I was the first irrigation system in my house.
So like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I wish. So you go out with the hose and you put your thumb over the nozzle and you squirt around. That was what everybody. And then they had the one that you hook into the ground and it goes back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, those were the hot things. But what do you think there's new? Well, I know there are, but new technologies such as artificial intelligence-driven internet integration, fertigation advances. Glenn, do you believe will transform the industry in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see that going?
Well, it has the opportunity to do that because that's what needs to happen. Is that if it rains today, you don't want to water, and I played around with a technology that evaporation pan. That if the wind blows, the evaporation rate is higher. If it don't blow, it's lower. You need something, and AI could definitely do it. I mean, it would adjust that controller every day based upon what happened yesterday. And what happened yesterday is what you're putting back today. So that is probably one of the areas that would probably help what we're talking about here is the wasting of the water. Is they set a controller to run a certain amount of time, and it runs every day. And we know the weather is different every day. And so you need a little bit more when the evaporation rate is high. You need less when it's lower. So, and again, you're talking about what's probably going to be in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
I also think it could really. I also think it could really tie into a lot of budget-based rates for water districts, because when you're talking about their outdoor water use, they're really guessing a lot of the time using the evapotranspiration rate of the area and their square footage. And I think this could help them be even more accurate. And since we keep trying to scale that, gallons per capita per day number, that will become increasingly important. Sorry. Go ahead.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, I used to laugh at data that people would collect. A lot of controllers have where they give you 20 years of historical data. Well, I call it hysterical data instead of historical because I don't need data. I don't need data that's 20 years from 20 years ago to today. That's not going to help me.
No.
As you said, what happened the day before or even for the last week would give you what you need. And I just see, like you said, I see lots of water running down the streets because the rotors aren't, or the spray heads aren't adjusted right, or the pressure's too high, or they have a broken nozzle that came off, and you got the geyser going down the street. And, it's just crazy of that. How much tell our audience how you balance technical solutions with operational realities in water constrained environments? I mean, stuff I talked to you and you've shown me on the things that you designed just blew me away with the pressure pressure regulators and in a drip zone kit and stuff like that, where you made it miniaturized and simple to operate. And I mean, those are things that people want.
Well, I think drip is taking the industry over, and it's going to save a lot of water because they're going to have the regulation and the filtration, the stuff like that makes it last a long time. And it used to be, just somebody making little pieces out of a garage, but now it's starting to take over. But regulation is a big key, and fertigation is the other thing that I got here that I just developed. That it's been on the market 4 or 5 years. If you've got a drip system today, the only way you can fertilize that the water or your plant is through the water. And I've got a fertilizer injector that will suck it out of the jar or the bucket, put it into the water, and then blend it with and irrigate the plant. And you can put any kind of a fertilizer in there that's liquid, and you can tell. Take a look at my yard. You can tell the difference of what it made. And so that's something that's coming, and that'll help save water. If you're giving the plant what it needs, you don't need more water. And that's something that we didn't talk too much about, but it's a real opportunity. Giving the plant what it needs to water or to survive at the time it needs. And through the water is the only way to do it if you got a drip system.
Well, we got 2 minutes left. I just have one more question for you. But how important is ongoing education for professionals, and what skills are most needed in your opinion?
Well, it's the biggest challenge, I think, is getting the user to know how to use your product. I mean, everybody got good literature, they've got good information, but they don't even look at that when they install the system. I mean, there's no measurement. They just turn it on and see, and if they say space them at 15 feet, they space them at 12, just so that they've got good coverage. But they're just destroying the coefficient of uniformity. Yeah. It goes back to education, and it's going to start from, I think the manufacturers have got that responsibility. And I know Toro, when we were there, and they do a pretty good job, but they're trying to sell products. They're not trying to educate how to use the product and where and when and how. And I think that's the biggest challenge that the irrigation industry has right now, is teaching the people that are using it.
I agree. Well, we're up to the last minute here, and I got to turn it over to NBC for their news hour. We appreciate, Glenn, I sincerely appreciate talking with you, and I miss seeing you. And when I come back to California, some visits, I'll give you a call. We'll go to lunch and talk about some other stuff. So thank you again for coming on the show. We do appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Multiple players and draft picks involved in a 5-team